I hate this card. I hate this card and several others right now within my T206 Polar Bear set. But what can you take from my mistakes as a collector of T206 to make your set even better as we move into the future? But before we begin, welcome back to my channel. My name is Chris, otherwise known on X and Instagram as at CRT_Sportscards. And if you want to learn more about the T206 set, do yourself a favor right now and hit that subscribe button. And look, hate is a very, very strong word. Maybe it's better to say I dislike this card, but when I take a look at all these cards behind me and the cards that are in my binder set, there are several out there that just stand out, and I ask myself why. Now, I know why I purchased this card. I purchased it because I needed to complete my set. But what I don't know and what I don't like is why did I purchase this particular copy of the card? Yes, I absolutely love the fact that it is a tie cob card. There is a special part of your collection when you can add a tie cob to your set. But for some reason, I got into my head that I was competing with someone else and I had to just buy this particular card. And then on the flip side, I go out there and I look to purchase a PSA 4 Jim Scott. And for a lot of you out there, when I say Jim Scott, you're not going to know who that is. And I can't tell you myself right now that I know much about Jim Scott other than he plays for the White Sox and I own a PSA 4 copy of the card. But in reality, which is better for my set? And I say that because I built my Polar Bear set the complete wrong way. A way that I would never ever recommend to anyone trying to attempt this in the future. It not only cost me a lot of money, it puts me in a spot now where I'm forced to upgrade this card, spend time, spend resources, when if I had just had a plan from the beginning, I would not be stuck with this really awful condition tie cob and at the same time a really high grade Jim Scott card, which is great, it's nice, but does it really make my set that much better? No. But having a nice maybe grade 1 or grade 2 or possibly grade 3 if the deal was right for a tie cob, that would make my set that much bigger. And this is where having a plan is so critical. My only plan when I was putting together my Polar Bear set was to buy all the cards. Whatever I could find, I would buy. Another way to look at it is in these terms. When you look at my 110 graded T206 Polar Bears, the average grade of my cards are a 2.43 when you look at PSA and SGC combined. But when you look at my 32 Hall of Famers, keeping in mind one of them though is not graded, which was a mistake when I sent in my Hall of Fame cards to get graded, my Hall of Famers are just at a 1.35. So the best cards in my set, because I didn't have a plan, are some of the worst low grade condition cards in my entire set. Yet I have 4s and 5s of players that I shouldn't have spent the money on. So how am I going to take this data and now make the journey in 2025 and 2026 that much better, considering now I want to complete the 520 card T206 set? First and foremost here, I have an actual want list for 2025. I have never had an actual want list in all of my time collecting T206. My other want lists were just go buy them all, and this is why we are here today, because I didn't have that plan. So we'll go over my top 5 targets for 2025 here in a second. But number 2, it's also going to be a condition grade goal with these cards and all of my cards, but then we're going to extrapolate it a little bit higher for these Hall of Famers, because I want to spend the time and energy buying these cards once and not having to upgrade them in the future. And then number 3, I'm going to have some fun with this. I have devised a point system for the cards I need, and my goal is to deliver at least 50% of the points that are available right now in my set. So it's a real true fun game as a set collector here for this 2025 season. But now let's take a look first at these top 5 cards that I want to have in my set this year. So first up we have Christy Mathewson Sovereign 150 White Cap. Number 2, we have Carl Lundgren and his Piedmont 350 Chicago variation. Third, we have Kid Elberfeld, the Tabasco Kid, in his Piedmont 350 Washington portrait. Fourth and fifth are some of the best portraits in my mind. Number 4 and a Sovereign 150, we have Walter Johnson, and then number 5, we have Cy Young. Now, spoilers here, as you have probably seen on Instagram, I have purchased a few other cards this year, but if I only collected and purchased these 5 cards in 2025, I would be a happy little clam. I would be elated that I completed these 5 cards for my set. I do know that if I just add one T206 card a week over the next 4.5 years, I'm going to complete this set. But it's much bigger than this, and this is why I am targeting these 5 particular cards in 2025. It's also a value play at the same time. If I had purchased that Ty Cobb, that off-shoulder, when I first started building my Polar Bear set, I would have only spent about $1,000. That really rough A-grade copy cost me just under $2,000. Back at the 2021 National, I passed on a Ray Demet PSA 1 Polar Bear for $1.5K. I spent over $3,000 on that A-grade that now sits in a PSA slab. So time is of the essence of these really hard to come by and also Hall of Fame worthy cards. But then the second part of this plan is, what condition of these cards am I going to obtain them in? Back in the day, I would be very happy with A grades. And now look, I do have some really nice A grade cards in my set. But on a condition grade perspective, if I'm buying them graded, I want for my Sovereign 150 set, my Old Mill Southern League, and then my Piedmont 350s. I just want these cards in a 1 grade. That's my level of expectation. I want a Sovereign 150 set in a 1 grade. But here is the trick, and here is a challenge for me when it comes to these Hall of Famers, not only on these 5 cards, but some of the other cards. Getting them in a 1.5 or getting them in a 2. Taking the time to purchase these cards, but always looking for them. Because the problem I ran into with that Ty Cobb was I didn't look for it for probably a good 1.5 years. I think I got into the 200s of my Polar Bear set, and then I decided I had the money to purchase that Ty Cobb. And that's where I ended up with that god-awful A-grade Ty Cobb. I don't want to miss an opportunity to buy the card, so I'm always going to be looking. But the goal is, with these Hall of Famers, can I get them in a 1.5 or a 2? Because then at the end of this, my Hall of Famers will be in higher grade than my actual Sovereign set, for example. Whereas right now my Polar Bear set, it's the exact opposite. But now let's have some fun. Let's take a look at my point structure for this year to see what these cards are worth from a point value, and if I can achieve at least 50% of the available points. So when you take a look at this list right here, you're going to see the top 5 cards are each going to be worth 100 points. The other 39 Hall of Famers I need, keeping in mind Elberfeld is not a Hall of Famer, but of the 39 Hall of Famers I need in my set still, they are going to be worth 20 points each. Every Sovereign 150 that I pick up this year is going to be worth 6 points. I need 91 when I made this list up a few weeks ago. Old Mill Southern Leaguers, they are worth 4 points. And then Piedmont 350s, I do understand that there are a couple of short prints in those Piedmont 350s, but Piedmont 350s are going to be worth 2 points each this year. So from an overall point perspective, if you were to obtain all of these cards on this point structure, you're looking at 2,100 points. So the goal in 2025 is, can I deliver at least 50% of those points? But talk is cheap. The goal here is now, can I execute? Can I hold myself accountable to my goals as we go through 2025? I know why I'm where I'm at right now with my set, because I wasn't holding myself accountable. But this year, it's all about accountability. And if I focus on just these top 5 cards, plus my Hall of Famers, and then sprinkle in a couple of Piedmonts and a couple of Sovereign 150s or Old Mill Southern Leaguers, I'm going to have a very successful year. But what I cannot do in 2025 is go buy a bunch of random common players, because that is not what's going to make my set the best set that it could be.